Hey there folks, this is GreenyXI welcoming you right back to Let's Play Umineko. This is episode 75. In the last episode, we started off the 5th arc, and Burncastle and Lambda Delta tried to take over the game board for this 5th arc, just because Battler and Beto, they aren't in their right frame of minds. So, Battler came back, but Beto's just like a lifeless doll. I think she's got bored of all the whole everything going on and on. So, let's get going. Right now, no humans exist on this island except for those in this parlour, and with one exception, it's been shown that none of them have committed murder, and the culprit is among these people. Whoa, that means it's conclusive, isn't it? Unless the culprit is a witch who committed murder with magic, that is. It was you? You killed George, killed my husband? Why? It's funny with this arc because it started so late into the game. I didn't kill anyone. I didn't. In a panic, and with a voice that was far from calm, in a manner that was, to put it coldly, unsightly, Aunt Natsuhi denied the suspicion placed upon her. However, there was no longer any way around it. She stood up, brushed back her long hair, pointed at Aunt Natsuhi, and said it one more time. Ooh, the new character. And I really like her from the manga. I haven't read much of the manga for the answer arcs, but I have seen a little bit of her. You're the culprit, Ashuramaya Natsui-san. But who is she? It's taken a while carrying on, so... Maybe not. My cursor's actually gone, like, buffering, loading. Nice, we got a brand new opening for us, essentially the start of the 4th When They Cry game. Higurashi question and answer 1 and 2, Umineko question and answer are 3 and 4. So we finally got a new start. That's exciting. It's Natsuhi, please open up. As she knocked loudly and repeatedly, Natsuhi yelled. Let me just double check something really quick, because it did buffer for a long time, so I want to make sure it's still recording. Yeah, we're good. Shortly after, there was a heavy clunking sound, and the sound of the door to Kinzo's study unlocking could be heard. Is Kinzo coming out? As the door opened, a heavily sweet, venomous odour flowed out. Natsuhi was always ashamed of how she automatically grimaced at that, even though she thought it rude to the family head. Krauss was waiting for her inside the study. Oh, Krauss. Natsuhi flew into his arms. His father... is he... Calm yourself. Dr. Nanjo is examining him now. With an uncertain gait, Natsuhi walked towards the centre of the study, supported by Krauss. There, a dignified bed fitting for the Ashuramaya family head could be seen, along with Nanjo, Genji, and Kumasawa. Dr. Nanjo. His father... After sighing deeply, Nanjo left the side of the bed. On the bed, Kinzo could be seen lying down, asleep. He died peacefully. I don't think Kinzo-san had any regrets. Ah! Father! Father! Sobbing, Natsuhi slumped over the chest of that man, who had fallen into a sleep from which he would never awaken. Madam, please stay strong. Father! Father! This is just too sudden. Sudden? Been years in the making, haven't it? Natsuhi couldn't stop crying over the death of the man whom she had loved like a second father. Kumasawa rubbed Natsuhi's back, consoling her. Krauss slumped into his late father's favourite chair. By sitting there, he might have been immersed in memories of his departed father. Or perhaps he thought that by sitting there, he might be able to understand just a bit of the madness of Kinzo's later years, which he had never been able to comprehend before. And Nanjo, just as he had when Kinzo once sat in that chair, contemplating a chess move, turned his back and looked down over the outside world through a crack in the curtains. If only he'd been sick in bed for a year or so first. I do wish he could have died after a grace period during which the proper arrangements could have been made. It's the other way around. We should be glad that he was in high spirits until the very end. At least that's true as far as public appearances are concerned. Nanjo understood that as well. Ashuramaya Kinzo, who had risen like a comet and glittered like a supernova in the post-war business world, had died. His funeral would probably be of a fantastic scale, and it would also be the ceremony making Krauss's inheritance of the headship. He would have to arrange everything as the host of the event, carry out funeral diplomacy perfectly, and make it clear to all the Ashuramaya families still had enormous influence in the political and financial spheres. As Nanjo watched Krauss, he was vividly reminded of the time when Kinzo had been suddenly selected as the Ashuramaya family head, when Kinzo had been lost and confused. In this way, he was able to understand Krauss's distress and sympathise with it. Natsuhi's sobs eventually subsided. Watching this and leaving Kumasawa to care for Natsuhi as a fellow woman, Genji returned to where Krauss was. And as though asking what should be done, Genjo lowered his head slightly. Genji-san and I will deal with the formalities. Krauss-san, perhaps you could contact the relatives first. Krauss, with his hand still over his eyes, didn't respond. Perhaps even though he had known this day would come, Krauss really couldn't hide his shock at how suddenly it had reached him. Leave this to Dr. Nanjo and me. Krauss-sama, I suggested you first speak with Madam. Maybe she heard that, or maybe it was a coincidence. As though responding to Genji's words, Natsuhi came over. Her eyes were red from crying so much, but she apparently understood the heavy responsibility that had been imposed on them even better than Krauss did. Starting now, you are the head of the glorious Ashuramaya family. Let us show everyone, inside and out, that you have splendidly succeeded your father. As your wife, I, Natsuhi, am prepared to serve you until the day our coffins are laid down, alongside each other. Trying to encourage her husband, who was overcome with shock, Natsuhi lent him some reassuring words. When Krauss finally lowered the hands that had been covering his face, he looked up at the ceiling with a blank expression and let out a deep, deep sigh. Please, stay strong. There are a great many people who will plan to devour everything Father has left behind. We must fight to protect Father's honour and wealth. That's the first responsibility of the Ashuramaya head. I understand. I do understand. Dr. Nanjo, Genji, please take care of the legal and funeral arrangements. Especially you, Genji. I ask that you take particular care and see to it that the funeral will be a fitting one for Father. Certainly. And Dr. Nanjo? Father didn't pass away in a hospital, so... Indeed. An autopsy might be required, depending on circumstances. Can you do something about that? Even though he has passed away, Father's body is precious. Any damage done to it would not be acceptable. I understand how you feel. However, it's also important to deal with these matters properly. And, I don't really know how to say this, but several of the relatives might make things difficult, yes? Who knew how those vultures after the inheritance might try to find fault with them? They might claim to have found some reason to suspect the cause of death, using that as a point of contention to start some trouble. Right now it's important not only to pay Kinzo's remains the respect they were due, but also to solidify the position of the new family head, Krauss. Understood. Please keep it to an absolute minimum. Make sure that father's dignity is not damaged even by mistake. That'll be fine. Do not worry. In any event, leave Kinzo-san to us and stay by Krauss-san's side. Things will start to get quite difficult from here on out. I understand. And you too, dear. Please stay strong. Krauss was still staring blankly at the ceiling with a befuddled expression on his face. She understood the shock and heavy responsibility he bore. Natsuhi understood her husband's feelings as much as anyone. I'll contact the relatives. Please rest for the time being. Krauss didn't respond. Natsuhi, thinking him to be just a bit unreliable at the moment, decided she must offer her support. Seeing her husband like this actually spurred Natsuhi to action, and a resolute expression rose to her face. Things will get busy from now on. Let's start by doing whatever we can right now. I'm sure my husband wants to have some time alone with father. We should step out for a moment. Good point. After all, this will probably be the last time he gets that chance. Being in charge of the funeral is tiring work. There's no time to shed tears. If Krauss were ever to be given time to cry for his dead father, that time would have to be now. Everyone agreed with Kumasawa's words. Even so, Krauss continued to blankly gaze up at the ceiling and didn't respond in any way. Natsuhi urged the servants to go. I'll go talk to Jessica too. That child is now the successor to the headship. So, this is going back in time before what we saw at the very start, right? Everyone's back alive, or most people. I'll make sure to tell her to be fully prepared. Wait. As they each started to make their way out of the study, Krauss finally spoke. They stopped walking. Wait. Yes? Hadn't she already stopped walking, just like her husband had asked? But despite that, he told her once again to wait. From those slightly weak words, Natsuhi understood that he'd probably stopped her because he wanted her to be by his side. The rest of you, downstairs. I'll stay with my husband. Please call us on the phone if anything happens. Certainly. I thought I told you to wait. When Krauss suddenly raised his voice, everyone jumped and turned around. Unable to comprehend what she had done to spark her husband's wrath, Natsuhi ran up to him. What's wrong, dear? Have I said something rude? If so, please forgive me. No, that's not it. Wait a second, give me some time. I understand. It's important to sort things out inside your heart. We were just going to leave this place in silence to give you some time, okay? And I'm telling you to wait before doing that. Listen up, no one move. Not even an inch. If you're tired, then feel free to sit in whatever chair or sofa you want. So just stay quiet and don't talk, don't do anything. Those unreasonable words felt like a glimpse of how Kinzo used to be. Natsuhi couldn't hide her slight surprise at this behaviour, which almost made it seem as though Kinzo had possessed her husband. Natsuhi told the servants to wait for the time being. She ordered them to sit on a sofa a short distance off, approached her husband and spoke to him in a small voice. If you order it, I will wait however long you ask. I won't move. So please, try and calm yourself. No, that's not it. Was it really blood, or was he actually being possessed? Krauss's disorderly style of speech strongly resembled Kinzo's. As she watched this, Natsuhi became certain that Krauss was Kinzo's son after all, and that he was the true successor, more suitable than any other person. Natsuhi, come here. Krauss stood up and headed towards the window, trying to lengthen the distance between himself and the servants waiting on the sofa by even a small amount. Natsuhi realized that he must have something secret to discuss. Yes, dear. What is it? Father dying is bad. But he has already passed away. We cannot turn back time. That's not it. It's bad that it happened now. What do you mean? I've been putting father's fortune up as collateral. I won't be able to hide it when the division of the inheritance comes into question. What? Collateral, you say? How much? You remember how I helped out Kondo-kun back in Melody Land? Didn't I tell you to break ties with that person? I thought you said you'd refused him. Why? There is such a thing as a man's honour. I couldn't refuse. Krauss claimed to hold honour as a virtue. However, Natsuhi knew that he most often used this as an excuse for when he reluctantly went along with some deal that he just couldn't refuse. That wouldn't be a problem if we had plenty of money on hand. But didn't you borrow quite a lot of money for the plan to turn this island into a resort? Yeah, I did. And there were people here and there who lent me a hand along the way. If I'm going to repay them, I can't just sit around on my hands. You need money to repay people. You need money to make money. You can't even get started without money. And even the plan for this island would be proceeding smoothly if only there hadn't been problems with the planning company. I made contact with a government official in the city. I even got the governor's word that this would become the newest travel destination in the Tokyo metropolis. The groundwork I laid was completely perfect. Random chance and bad timing were against me. I was just a bit of bad luck. Like a traffic accident. That was no accident. It was fraud. You were tricked. They were never drawing up plans for turning this island into a resort in the first place. That's not true. Hijikata-kun's vision was simply overflown with foresight. The way his eyes always focused on the whole world and the future taught me that things I always believed to be mere dreams were only the tip of the iceberg of what's possible. Expanded dreams. To the whole world, to the future. You heard him say that too, right? Yes, I heard. I think I remember telling you what I thought after we returned home. I said that he was suspicious, that he only spoke of dreams and didn't have his feet planted on the ground, and that you must not have any further relations with him. Hijikata-kun is a wonderful, pleasant young man. One could learn a lot from the way he lives. I can respect him despite his youth. I won't have you insulting him. That's what you said about the whole moon tourism thing. You kept saying it was visionary, that it looked to the future, that it had high aspirations, and what was the end result? Eventually, you yourself admitted that it was utter nonsense, right? I was sure something was wrong, ever since that strange man showed up claiming to be a high-ranking NASA official. That foreigner was nothing more than an international swindler. Both Mr. Sonozaki and I were victims in that case. Right now, his vision isn't mistaken. In the future, there will surely come a time when the richest people in the world develop a liking for space travel, and the very first enterprise in that area will probably be monopolized by a single private company. That viewpoint is not mistaken. There is simply a group of international swindlers who are trying to take advantage of that fact and deceive investors across the world. And I'm trying to tell you that this Sonozaki man was one of them too. Just how gullible are you? Why do you always just accept these suspicious offers without any doubts? Take that back. Mr. Sonozaki is a man with a brilliant future ahead of him. There's nothing suspicious about him, because the dreams he speaks of anticipate the future. They sound crazy to people who can't see it into the future. A woman like you can't see into the future. Yes, a woman like me can't see into the future, but I can see the present. Right in front of me, I can see a pitiful husband who's been taken in by sly, double-crossing swindlers and still trusts them implicitly even after he's been tricked. Shut your mouth. You don't understand anything about money or business or economics. Don't try to butt in on your husband's job. A wife should be satisfied with doing housework. Keep your mouth shut. Without another word, Natsuhi fell silent, just as Krauss had hoped she would. She was already far beyond anger and sadness, and the emotion that lay on the other side of those was an almost indifferent pity. Krauss, who had been in awe of Kinzo since he was very young, had started to subconsciously admire the way his father lived. Without realizing it, he had come to believe that he could only be recognized as a man in his own right if he surpassed his father. However, Kinzo had been a mad genius, the likes of which had never before been seen in the Ashuramaya family's long history. That talent was a gift from heaven, and it definitely wasn't genetic, much less something that could be learned. To give the two of them a chance to talk alone, Natsuhi told the servants not to tell anyone about Kinzo's death, and they left the room for the time being. Then, she invited Krauss to her bedroom, and made him tell her everything about their current financial situation. These were things that Natsuhi hadn't been told about, under the assumption that a woman had no business knowing. Natsuhi had herself made a point of avoiding this area in the past, thinking that it wasn't a wife's place to intrude on such matters. However, this might also have meant that she had abandoned her duty as a wife to protect her family. The depths of this sin had been made quite clear to Natsuhi. Krauss was probably tired of trying to defend himself. Perhaps because he had gotten a headache, he hid his face and sank into silence. Natsuhi noticed that the water in the electric kettle was boiling and stood up to refill her cup with black tea. When she touched her cup of black tea, she noticed for the first time. The sound of the cup and saucer clinking together told her that her fingers were shaking. Krauss had built up a large debt to obtain funds for his various projects and to cover the losses when they failed. Of course, he had put the mansion and property up as collateral. However, doing such a thing above board would result in the mortgage being registered. In other words, there would be a record that Krauss had put Kinzo's wealth up as collateral to obtain a loan without anyone's permission. Kinzo, Eva, and the others must not learn of such a thing. Therefore, Krauss had been putting those assets up as collateral using the worst possible method. I signed over the deeds and power of attorney. And what's that mean? What Krauss was saying probably meant that he had, in essence, signed away the rights to his assets. And these assets had been used as collateral for a loan. If, then Krauss would still have some leeway under the law. He would have to deal with a bank, which would have absolutely no compassion. But they would be able to work something out within the rules set by society. However, signing away the deed and power of attorney was a whole different story. In other words, even the mansion they were living in, if the person holding the deed were to decide to ignore his agreement with Krauss and sell the mansion to a third party right this moment, they would have no recourse whatsoever. Far from using collateral for a loan, this is basically the same as selling their house to borrow money. In other words, the moneylenders have the power to make or break the Ashurmaya family as they please. If they were to suddenly sell our house on some slight whim, we'd have to pack our bags and leave right now, wouldn't we? That's technically true. However, everyone I have had dealings with is very reputable. This isn't consumer financing. It's a transaction based on trust between economically literate men. I trust them, and they in turn trust that by lending me money, I will achieve great success in business and give them massive returns on their investment. I signed over the power of attorney as a sign of good faith, and so that they wouldn't have to doubt in the certain success of my business. What happens if I hesitate now? Wouldn't that mean even I have no confidence in my own business? If you're such a successful businessman, we wouldn't be in debt now, would we? Natsuhi only barely stopped herself from saying that. Father's dead. What happens next? Will your debt be exposed to the light of day? And will your siblings hold you responsible? That won't be all. It will probably lead to criminal charges. Criminal charges? Why is that? It's better if you don't know. Anyway, this must not be learned of by anyone. Krauss looked at the floor shamefully, shaking his head over and over. If it would come to criminal charges, then he must have broken some laws. He's probably been so intent on raising a large sum of money that nothing had mattered to him but survival. Krauss had seriously believed that he would succeed with several businesses, and that he would definitely gain huge profits. So he had figured that even if he stepped over a few legal lines, he would be able to pay everything back before too long and pretend that the whole thing had never happened. This may have been the factor that lessened his resistance towards breaking a couple of laws. And now Kinzo's death, the worst possible thing, had occurred, and they wouldn't be able to keep it all hidden for long. What will happen to us? There's no need to worry. You may not believe it, but conditions are most certainly on the rise now. The value of the city real estate I invested in will rise rapidly. Right now, I'm working on a project to integrate those and construct a massive business tower. This will be the most reliable of all my investments so far, and will prove to be the most successful. However, it'll take a little more time for that to bear fruit. It's absolutely certain, but that doesn't mean it will happen now. Will the success of that venture be enough to pay back our debts? Of course it will. I'll be able to wipe out all the debt I've accumulated so far. So have faith in me. I only need a little more time. But Father's already dead. We don't have that kind of time anymore, do we? I know that. That's why I have to obtain money from somewhere and pay off those debts right now. Anyway, I need money. Money, a lot of it, right now. As Krauss roared and clutched at his head, he writhed about as if in pain. As she watched, several emotions swirled about in Natsuhi's chest. Her emotions conflicted as she felt pity for her husband, while also feeling that he was a fool. And she felt a mixture of resentment and regret towards her own irresponsibility in letting her husband run wild for so long. Even if this day hadn't come, it should have been clear that they were in a very critical situation. And yet he had carelessly waited for this moment to come. It was now writhing about. Her husband was so foolish and so pitiful. It would be easy to let herself get fed up with this. However, she was his wife. For a wife, ridiculing her husband as a fool would run in conflict with her responsibilities. If he was a fool, then she would have to support him enough to compensate. However, she didn't have a clue what she should do. Since there had been such a massive amount of money within arm's reach, it was only natural that Krauss had tried to dip his hands into it. It would also be easy to tell him to be a man and give up on all of it, but that would also run in conflict with her responsibilities. She was Ashuramaye Natsuhi, the woman who had become Krauss's wife and sworn to support him, the new head of the Ashuramaye family, for her whole life. She had to somehow help her husband in his efforts to raise money. She understood it logically, but she couldn't suppress the indescribable dejection that seemed to rise up from the dark depths of her heart. That's right, for father's hidden gold. For father. 10 tons of gold is worth 20 billion yen. If I had that, that's right, if I had that, all our problems would be solved. Natsuhi, that's it. The witch's epitaph. Let's solve that. Let's solve it together. If you can just find the gold, everything will work itself out. That's right, it must be hidden somewhere on this island. If we had that. That hurts, dear. Please stop it. Krauss, acting as excited as if he'd thought up a perfect, brilliant plan, grasped Natsuhi's upper arms tightly. Natsuhi couldn't help but be dumbfounded. She wasn't just taken aback because she'd heard him bring up something as fake sounding as the hidden gold. This was Krauss, who usually mocked the story of the hidden gold, saying that it didn't exist and that it was all an illusion his father had created to borrow a lot of money. That was why Natsuhi was doubly taken back. Yes, let's have Jessica help us too. Maybe some things can only be solved with a child's sensitivity. This is a family crisis. All of us have to stick together. Yes, it's a fanciful riddle that father created. We should be able to solve it, and there's no reason we wouldn't be able to solve it. It's the only way. Oh Natsuhi, this is wonderful. We still have an option left, right here next to us. The gold's on this island. If we had it, every one of our problems would be solved. Wah! Natsuhi, call Jessica here right away. Let's overcome this family crisis together. Yes, right now. The gold's on this island. It's right beside us. Wah! Unable to withstand the pain in the arm he was twisting in his excitement, Natsuhi knocked Krauss aside. Krauss tripped over the edge of the bed and flopped over on the floor. Please get a hold of yourself. And please calm down. Do you really think that this Ashuramaye family crisis could be solved by something as dreamlike as that? Natsuhi, please cool your head and think of a realistic plan to gather money. I'm gonna go cool my head as well. Wait, Natsuhi. Maybe he had come to his senses the instant he fell over. Krauss tried to tell Natsuhi to stop, but she just kept walking. After closing the door forcefully, Natsuhi dashed away. Natsuhi ran through the corridor. Even though she didn't want anyone to see her like this, she ran headlong into Genji. My deepest apologies. Madam, have you been injured? I'm fine. Leave me alone. Certainly. Oh, Genji. How are things going in Father's study? It's just as you left it. Although Dr. Nanjo is in the parlour. Is that so? Do you have the key to the study? Yes. Right here. Give it to me. Let me have some time alone with Father. If my husband asks where I am, tell him you don't know. Certainly. After grabbing the key to the study that Genji was holding out to her, Natsuhi rushed up the stairs. She then flew into the study, finally let out a wail and cried. Father, please forgive our foolishness. My husband and I aren't capable of inheriting all that you created. Please, please, forgive us for our foolishness and our crimes. And if you can forgive us, please guide the way for us fools. Clinging to Kinzo as he slept in the bed, Natsuhi cried even harder. She kept imagining Kinzo sitting up suddenly and patting her head. No, Father isn't the type of person to pamper. More likely, he'd yell at me to stop being so noisy. However, neither of these imaginations came true, because it was an undeniable fact that Kinzo had entered an eternal sleep. But even so, Natsuhi begged the sleeping Kinzo to forgive and help them. It was still only a few hours after his passing. Perhaps his soul was still here, listening to her. Believing this, Natsuhi begged for Kinzo's forgiveness and helped even more earnestly. Too noisy. Haven't I always said that I hold silence as a virtue? That voice made Natsuhi jump up in surprise. Ghost times. When she faced in the direction that the voice had come from, she saw Kinzo sitting at the study desk, folding up his reading glasses. Did you get in a fight with Krauss again? Neglecting his wife like that? That Krauss only inherited my bad traits. Father. What a wretched looking face. Wash it. Aren't you the wife of the successor of the Ashuramiya family? You mustn't let the servants see you wear such a shameful expression. Yes, father. My apologies. Natsuhi understood. This was just an illusion, one that Natsuhi had created out of a desire to speak with a memory of Kinzo as he once was. No, that wasn't it. She believed that just for now, Kinzo's soul had shown itself to her. She was sure that doubt in this would cause it to vanish in an instant. It seems that at the instant the family headship was passed on, the family has reached a crisis. Yes, father. I wasn't able to support my husband. I'm truly very sorry. My family is so very cursed. It was in a terrible state when I succeeded the headship too. That makes your suffering seem almost cute in comparison. Kinzo's succession to the family headship had come suddenly. At the time, he had been nothing more than a single young man from a branch family, far separated from the Ashuramiya main family. The main family might have had honour and tradition, but Kinzo had had nothing to do with that. Then the principal members of the main family were wiped out in the Great Kanto earthquake, along with their businesses. On top of that, there had been a complicated antagonism between the members of the family at the time, and the elders had all tried to impose their will on the others in that sinking ship. Because of this, they weren't even able to elect a leader to revive the Ashuramiya family. They then found a common ground and selected Kinzo, a youth with absolutely no ties to any of the opposing elders, to be the head. So the elders hadn't really entrusted Kinzo with the rebuilding of the Ashuramiya family. Kinzo had been nothing more than their puppet, with his arms and legs pulled in opposite directions. Yes, I know a lot about your days of suffering, father. And then the war started. At the time, I was already tired of life. I hoped I would die on the battlefield, but I wasn't sent to the front lines. However, the state of the war grew worse with every day, and the time for the decisive battle on the Japanese mainland seemed to grow ever closer. As terrible as it may sound, I prayed for that day to come quickly. After listening to the approaching footsteps of that Reaper day in and day out, sorry, it said that Kinzo started cutting his ties with this world one by one. And then, on that day when he had severed all the regrets, when he reached a state of enlightenment, it said that he had a mystical experience. It said that he met her, the Golden Witch Beatrice. I made a contract with the witch and was given the power of golden madness. On that day, the old me died, and a new me possessing the insane power of magic was born. I know. And after the war, you used your ingenious cunning to revive the Ashuramiya family. The now deceased elders, who knew Kinzo at the time, had whispered to each other that Kinzo must have bumped his head on the battlefield and returned with a different personality. That was how much Kinzo had stood out after the war. Whether the story about Kinzo meeting a witch was true or not, there could be no doubt that the extraordinary experience of war had prepared him for death and let him reach a state of enlightenment. If we wanted to describe the mystical experience following all that as a meeting with a witch, that claim certainly shouldn't be dismissed out of hand. That's right. You returned from the war, conquered the witch Beatrice, and became the head of the Ashuramiya family in the truest sense. Correct. Before I met Beatrice, I was nothing more than a puppet, only the head in name. I only became the head after conquering the Golden Witch. Father, will this Golden Witch aid my husband Krauss, now that he's the new head? Oh, she will, assuming that he has truly succeeded the headship. What do you mean by truly succeeded? I mean, it depends on whether he bears the responsibility and pride of the Ashuramiya family head in the truest sense. Natsuhi, you should understand this. The headship is not inherited by blood. It's inherited through spirit and conviction. Even though Krauss is my eldest son, he cannot be called the true head if he does not possess these things. And if that spirit were to dwell in a human, even someone other than Krauss, they would make a splendid new head. Beatrice will lend her power to that true head. Isn't that right, Beatrice? Here she comes. When Kinzo called the witch's name, gold butterflies seethed out of every corner of the room. This fantastical scene had an otherworldly beauty to it. It was like standing in the midst of a blizzard of golden power, flowers, petals being blown about a rose garden of gold. As Natsuhi stared at the scene in shock, the gold butterflies gathered and formed a human shape. Then, the witch of the portrait appeared. Indeed, I am the Ashuramaia family alchemist, the Golden Witch Beatrice. I am free to run rampant. I listen to no one's words or orders, and there's only one person in the world who can control her. Me. That's why I'm qualified to be the Ashuramaia family head. So it's that pride of yours that qualifies you. Pride requires self-confidence and bravery, and it's the embodiment of this insatiable desire to gain power to match those traits. That's why I control you. Watching men who speak of pride turn those desires into reality can be quite pleasant. The quiet man of action is nothing more than an excuse used by the extremely lucky. A true monarch also speaks of what he doesn't have, and he makes that pride a reality without fail. If one's to control me, they must possess such a monarch's pride. Do you understand, Natsuhi? A true monarch fears no hardship. They declare that they will overcome anything without fail, even if they haven't yet figured out how. This gives hope to the weak. They gather, rever the monarch, and swear to assist him. This is where power is gained and his word is carried out. Engrave that into your heart. Yes, father. Natsuhi understood. Through this mystical experience, Kinzo was telling her how to prepare herself to overcome hardship, even after his own death. Feeling a warm sensation rise up in her chest, she let the valuable words Kinzo had given her echo through her mind over and over. A true monarch, in other words, the true head of the Ashuramaia family, must not fear hardship. Such a person must believe they can overcome any hardship. If they can't even believe it about themselves, then they'll have no chance of overcoming their challenges. She suddenly felt very ashamed of the way she'd entered this room, sobbing and asking Kinzo what to do. I was foolish. Of course, there's no time for crying when an Ashuramaia family crisis is upon us. And now that we have inherited the Ashuramaia family from you, father, we must protect its honour, no matter what. Oh, even though you can't even draw a blueprint on how to repay Krauss's debts? Beatrice laughed unpleasantly. No, that wasn't it. She was testing Natsuhi to see whether she possessed the mental readiness to be a true monarch. Natsuhi wasn't confused anymore. She answered clearly, gazing into Beatrice's eyes. Yes. At this moment I have not yet discovered the method we should pursue. However, my husband is the new head of the Ashuramaia family, and I am his supporting wife. So I proclaim it in my husband's place. Let us hear it. Ashuramaia Krauss and Natsuhi will definitely overcome these trials and protect the honour of the Ashuramaia family. You have nothing to worry about, father. Do you know the scope of Krauss's debt, as well as the horrible state things are in? Yes. If the worst happens and we are ordered to leave this mansion tomorrow, we won't be able to refuse. During the distribution of the inheritance, the relatives might even file a criminal complaint. However, there's no need to worry. We will repay all the debts before then and restore our honour. As she stood at attention with a resolute attitude, Natsuhi proclaimed this clearly with her Ashuramaia Kinzo and Beatrice as witnesses. For a while, they remained silent, as though weighing Natsuhi's resolve. Then Kinzo chuckled and turned away. How vexing. Why couldn't this person have been my son? The very fact that a woman with such a disposition married your son is another sign of your great luck. Beatrice, this is my final order. Now that you are no longer the head, I am not obligated to obey your orders. Oh, in that case obey the orders of the new Ashuramaia family head. You are no longer the head, and Krauss is not yet the head. Whom are you suggesting that I serve? I will leave that to you. It's up to you to decide who is qualified to succeed the Ashuramaia family head, and who is fitting to bear the mark of the one-winged eagle. You will ensure that it is so. I refuse. I won't listen to the orders of a man who isn't the head. No, this is different. This is a will. The last order that the head left behind for you. And it seems I'll have to obey. After all, I can be quite accommodating. Liar. Oh. You're only doing this because it caught your interest, aren't you? I can't hide anything from you, can I? Natsuhi? Yes, father. Go and overcome your hardship. Yes. That might have seemed like a mere response to Natsuhi, but to Kinzo and Beatrice, it seemed to be something of much greater significance. Beatrice nodded deeply, and with a motion as elegant as her dress, she bowed deeply before Natsuhi. The Ashurmaya family alchemist, the Golden Witch Beatrice, is present. I shall give you my aid to assist the Ashurmaya family in overcoming another crisis. Thank you. I will need your power. We will most certainly overcome these trials. I'll not hold back on my support for your cause, but there is something I must warn you about beforehand. I understand that your troubles now could be solved if I were to grant you a vast quantity of gold, like I did when I saved Kinzo from his crisis. However, that's something I cannot do. Is that so? Sorry, Natsuhi, Beatrice's gold came from a contract limited to my generation. It was agreed that it could only be passed on to another if that person solves the witch's epitaph. The gold is sealed away by the epitaph. As long as that's not solved, you cannot be given the golden magic. I understand. Then I shall search for another method by which we can save ourselves from this crisis. My husband said his plan would take time, but he also said that it would surely be sufficient to repay our debts. If we can buy enough time for that to happen, we'll be able to overcome this trial. Good, Natsuhi. Continue. But Kinzo is already dead. The doctor and servants are preparing his funeral. You're about to contact the family members. By your own hand, you'll bring an end to this ploy for time. How charming is the guillotine where you lower the blade yourself. Ah. Startled, Natsuhi looked up at the ceiling. There wasn't actually anything there. But even so, Natsuhi had found something. So the magical powers descended. Natsuhi, have you made up your mind? What magic of miracles do you desire from me? Once again, all those who had witnessed Kinzo's corpse were gathered in the study. Krauss was still impatient and clutching at his head. Genji was as expressionless as ever. Nanjo and Kumasawa wore bewildered expressions on their faces. But in stark contrast to all of them, Natsuhi wore a resolute expression. Dear, let me ask you one more time. Your plan for raising money is absolutely certain? Yes. Give it a year, no, just half a year, and it will certainly bear fruit. But it's just impossible to hope for anything right now. Then we will wait. But you said it yourself. Father's already dead. Father has not passed away. He's still there, as healthy as ever. When Natsuhi said this, everyone jumped and looked up, because they instantly understood what those words meant. However, Krauss alone didn't get it right away and asked her, What do you mean by that? Father's already in reality right there. I'll say it again. Father is still in good health. He is busy with his research, so he'll be even less able to leave his study than usual. Because of this, we must handle all external affairs ourselves, so that Father can devote himself to his research without being burdened by meaningless tasks. In short, nothing will change from the way things have been. Do you understand, Genji? Yes. The furniture of the one-winged eagle will continue to serve the master. Kumasawa? And you, Dr. Nanjo? Do you understand what I'm saying? Oh, Is that truly alright, Natsuhi-san? It may be true that Father passed away today, but if everyone right here, right now believes we can revive Father with magic, it's impossible, madam. That's just too much. The time of death will be made clear during the autopsy. We can't stop it from looking suspicious. Father will not pass away, so there will be no reason for there to be an autopsy. Of course, she wasn't planning to make it seem like Kinzo would live forever. The fake life given to Kinzo would only last until Krauss could repay his debts. After that, Kinzo's soul would finally be able to rest in peace. Nanjo repeatedly said that the time of death would be discovered during the autopsy, but Natsuhi kept saying that this wouldn't be a problem. Father will not pass away by being reported dead. I see. He'd be reported missing. After clapping his hands together, Krauss stood up, shaking his fists. Yes. Once we've managed to pay back the debt and finish our preparations for laying Father to rest, we will then announce that Father has disappeared. Rokkenjima's vast and cultivated forest was the perfect place to stage a disappearance. One day Kinzo would go out to the forest for a walk and never return. They would search for him without success, and then be forced to report his disappearance. If he disappears, we can file a report of his death, even without a corpse. In other words, we can hide him long enough to have him declared legally dead. What do you think, Dr. Nanjo? There won't be any problems that way. Yes, that might work. Is this really okay, madam? If we stay silent, then I'm sure we could keep the Master's death a secret. However, if we were to slip up even once and let someone find out... Kumasawa, don't be so loud. Father is sleeping right over there, correct? You trying to wake him? It isn't a corpse. Kinzo is sleeping. As Natsuhi said that, Kinzo lay quietly on the bed as though there was nothing at all odd about her words. Come, try to remember. What form did you have? What sort of life did you enjoy? Once again, a storm of gold butterflies started to swirl, covering Kinzo's cold body. Then after the butterflies exploded into fine gold powder and disappeared. Just like those fairy tales that have been told over and over since long ago, Kinzo slowly opened his eyes and sat up. Father. Natsuhi, let me first make one thing clear. I did not coax you into doing this because of my attachment to life. You liar. Don't tell me you didn't anticipate this at least a little. How does it feel, Kinzo? How's your body? It isn't bad, but it feels somewhat like being in a dream. I feel light. You're a being that wasn't permitted to remain in this world, yet you still remain here. Don't start complaining about a little discomfort now. Is your body truly alright? Is it really okay? Actually, it feels quite pleasant. If this is what the world after death feels like, playing the ghost might not be half bad. How's this, Natsuhi? Kinzo is revived. That means a funeral is unnecessary. Your hardship has been resolved. Beatrice. As Natsuhi tried to find words of gratitude amidst her confusion, Beatrice waggled her pointer finger and spoke. There is no need for thanks. A ruler is allowed to be proud. I will not pay heed to requests, but I will follow orders. Even so, I'll say it. Thank you. This way, you've bought some time for my husband. We will handle the rest. Be warned, Natsuhi. Kinzo may have revived, but that is not an internal thing. It will only continue as long as my magic does. Be warned that the magic-resistant toxin might destroy the magic. You must understand the laws of magic correctly, and work hard to maintain it. I can show you a miracle, but it's your role to grasp it and hold it. Of course, we definitely won't neglect the miracle you have given us. Very well. Yes, it would appear masters need to be changed out every once in a while, just like floor mats. I like it. I shall serve you, Ashuramaya Natsuhi. I am the Ashuramaya family alchemist, the Golden Witch Beatrice. Call my name whenever you wish. I shall appear and grant you a miracle. Thank you. I am Ashuramaya Natsuhi. I will employ you and protect the honour of the Ashuramaya family. Aha! So Natsuhi is the new master for Beatrice, and Kinzo is actually dead, but being brought back as a sort of ploy by Natsuhi and Krauss. Okay, so we've made it to the midway mark for the first chapter, I guess. Family conference of the previous year, October 5th, 1995. Okay, let's let this play out a sec so that I can save and everything. Oof. Okay, so it's money troubles, as always money troubles. That's caused it all, I guess. So, anyways, this has been Greeny XI. I hope you've enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again in a bit to see how the ploy plays out. Guess we're checking out the Rose Garden as well. Thanks again for watching, folks. See you again in a bit.